what we're calling our cinema version, which is the shortest version. But we just finished really a last mix and a last color correct on Wednesday and got this file on Thursday night, and we saw about a 5-minute test. So all the people who worked on the film are going to see this iteration of it for the first time today too. That said, the test I saw went well. So it's okay, it's insane. The only other thing to say is we will talk afterwards a little bit. And the film was made by a lot of people, and almost everyone in this room is either in it or worked on it, so it was a team. But ultimately, it's your story, the people who are here that you're about to see yourselves on the screen. And it's our Kensington. It's a film on Kensington. There's no way to make the film on Kensington, so I hope you like what you see, and we'll talk afterwards. All the crew folks that are here. There are a couple of things I'd like to say. First of all, we're going to have a bit of a gathering in the lobby afterwards for anyone who wants to hang out and chat. And I'd like to thank everyone who was a part of it, but I want to thank 3 people very, very specifically. Josh Henderson. Before we began asking Josh to climb up a ladder onto the 2nd floor of a store and shoot that winter solstice parade. That's the very first night of the film. And 2 nights ago, Tuesday afternoon, we watched the first test, ECP test, and it was like, oh my God, we got it recolor correct last minute. And Josh is was a colorist on the film as well as one of the main cinematographers. So Josh, thank you for being there, literally first frame to last color correct. Thank you. The other person I'd like to thank, David McGrowarty. Please. Fatigued and went, I don't know where the heck this is going. But David's a very encouraging human being, and those words of encouragement mattered and kept me chiseling away at it, so thank you. The 3rd person, of course, I need to thank, who is not in the room because she's setting up those cupcakes and cookies that you're about to have, is Alana Richmond, who's my partner, and she has supported this, again, odyssey from the beginning to the end. And it is an odyssey, and she has never once uttered one discouraging word other than to say, just keep going and keep at it. So if those 3 folks really, I know you hear all this stuff, but literally along the way, it's really easy to just, get discouraged or stop. And it's those folks that allow it to happen. So I appreciate that very much. So we've got 2 mics, correct? Okay, so you watch this. Does anyone have anything they want to say? Thoughts, feelings, any feedback around the market? Go ahead. I think there's a mic coming for you.
It was a great film, so thank you for allowing people to come and see it. But I was born on Denison Avenue, and then we moved to just north of college. And I can testify to the mood of the people. I used to help my father in the store. It was the most eastern part of Tom's Place where you saw the sign, I think that green sign. That was my dad's store. And there were several poultry stores. His was one of them. Despite them all being in competition, they always helped each other, going to the country to get produce, etc. So it was a very remarkable kind of place in the 40s, 50s, and into the 60s. My father sold his store in 1968. Now, David Pincus's mother was my patient, so I was in 34 Nassau many times. David's older brother was actually on the board of the Toronto Western Hospital where I started my career. And just a reminder that these perilous times have always existed, perhaps underground, is that as soon as the merger between the Toronto General and Toronto Western happened, all the ethnic components of the board of the Western, which was a true community hospital at that time, were expunged. So it all became a WASP place on the board. And in fact, a couple of years ago, one tremendous fundraiser and volunteer for the UHN was almost denied a place on the board because he was too Jewish. So it's something to remember that we always lived in perilous times. I guess my major concern is that the hero of neighborhoods in New York City, Jane Jacobs, who also ended up as a patient of mine, her fight to save Soho really has failed, right? You're talking about extreme gentrification where only very wealthy type stores can exist. You're talking about multi-millions of dollars for a condo. So it's scary to me because, you know, I still remember all the days when my father worked in Kensington Market. I used to go and help him on holidays and stuff. So it worries me that it might be a losing fight. And the gentleman from Mia Casa, which does have great coffee if you haven't had any there, is putting it very clearly at the end what the jeopardy really is. But thank you for making this film. Brings me back to my childhood.
You're welcome. I mean, I have the same concern. I mean, the reason this film began, I've been going, my grandparents immigrated to Toronto and lived in the market, and my parents both born in the market. And then they left, of course, you know, to go to North York, and my family and I grew up in North York. But I discovered the market when I was about 15 and could not believe there was a place that wasn't cookie cutter suburb. There was actually, like, I hate to use the word culture, just human color. And things were all unique, and they were a mess, and it was phenomenal. And so it's been a place I've always felt the second I go south of college or west of Spadina, you are in a safe and accepting place. And I've always wondered, I've always loved it, but also wondered, where the heck did this come from? Why is it in the air? Why does every single person I meet feel it? And then all these kids coming for coffee, do they even know where it got started or any of the roots of history? So I was interested in capturing some of the history. But as we got started, the condo meetings and the development started happening, and price escalation happened, and people were getting booted out of their places. And so it became something where we're going to capture some of that. And really, this is now a dated film. Like, we started it years ago, and now it's laughed. Like, you look at when we first shot this, we were looking at the real estate prices of the houses going, that dump for 1.3 million? And I'm sure a few people went, oh my God, I'd grab that for 1.3 million. It's worth $3 million. So the funny thing is, the real estate people were like the bad guys when we shot it, and now they're like the heroes. And the reason is, and this is my biggest concern, is that I grew up in a Toronto that was literally People City, and that's what we called it. And it's the Toronto of the 50s, I'm born in 63, but the 60s and 70s, we were all, most of us immigrants, were second, third generation, we all shared the place, and we had this amazing culture, and that to me is what makes Toronto incredible. But we're being priced out of that into a city where you've got to be wealthy to live here. You don't need making a lot of money to rent here. And so this became like a bit of a family snapshot of the transition from People City to Property City, and we're now well into this Property City transition. So this is not news. It's, again, this feels a bit dated in many ways, but I made it because I was concerned of what we were losing, and not that the film would make any difference, but I think it's important to remember what the roots of People City is, because if we lose that, just as Ozzy says at the end, if the gel's gone, we're done. And this really is the history of Kensington is a history of Toronto and the waves of immigration. And I guess one of the things I was hoping for, I don't know if we'll be able to do this, is to facilitate a conversation, which is how do we bubble up enough sentiment and energy around how people feel about living in Toronto back to the politicians, but beyond that, to say this is the kind of city we want to build, and try to figure out ways that there could be some sort of bureaucratic infrastructure to designate certain neighborhoods for certain densities and others not. That there has to be, you can't stop one person from selling their place for a profit or for properties to go up in value. That's just can happen. But are there ways that we can suggest to politicians and developers that we want to somehow keep in the conversation, not just on election night, but all the time what we want as citizens and people, and that might be something we have to put online. We have to figure out another way to have our values reflected back on a regular basis, even if it's a top 10 of the kinds of things we want to see in the city, that politicians are reminded what the people want, not just on election night, because developers write history with their funds. Once the city becomes all skyscraper, glass tower, and concierges, that's the built form. So anyways, my concern is we're losing People City. There's no one easy answer. But it would be nice to know what the roots of what made the city special, at least to me, and its people. And it was a rare time. We were lucky to live here at this time. Any other comments? Anyone? Christina, from House Maker, you can speak up.
I could speak loud enough. I don't know. Okay, so I knew you've been working on this for years, but I haven't seen a scrap of footage or anything. But having been someone who's, I'm a Torontonian. I'm born and raised here, and I've been in Kensington probably. It was the 80s when I really sort of discovered it. And it was really, really nice to be presented the true history.
Like Christina, just so other people can hear it.
Okay.
I'm not going to repeat what I said, but I'm to the point where I wanted to thank you for preserving the history that got a little clump near the end there because, you really start to feel like it's crumbling away. Those little cute, quirky vintage stores that I probably, if I dig through my stuff, still have a lazy pair of gloves.
Actually, but when I think about Charles Sousa and his family, or Dominique and how involved she's been, or David Perlman, and all of these people who care enough, okay, I made a film, but these people fight for this neighborhood every day for a decade or more. So, there's a few of them up there, but that's the other thing. I don't think of this as me documenting history as much as pointing a camera so they can share it. And just to give you context, we shot about 75 hours of material. Editing was just so hard. And we have all this other stuff that's just as rich, if not more so, because it's more personal. So on our website, we'll start adding a whole bunch of things where there's a lot more detail, and we've had to cut chunks of it are really hard to leave. But so what I'm trying to say, there's a much richer and broader history that couldn't be done in this forum. So hopefully we'll have a little bit more of those little, people and places and family histories that we couldn't put in a one-sit thing. But it's really rich, and that's what, I'm the worst person to edit this film because I really enjoyed all that stuff, and it was really tough to cut. And anyhow, all that to say, there's a lot of good stuff that we haven't left, and to thank some of the other people. You might recognize them in the lobby who were in the film, but I'm going to recognize them, as I just said. You guys fight for this place non-stop. You won't give up. You won't give up Kensington. You won't give up People City. And the whole thing is, it's broader. I don't want to be saying we have to be Luddites and keep two-story built form forever everywhere, because you can't. But there's a humanity that does come out of small retail in a neighborhood of houses, residential houses that became retail. People get that. They get that vibe. That's what makes it special. And I hope, Dominique, it doesn't become a Disney version, and it'll become its own thing. But I think the bigger thing is, it's easy to put a value on real estate and put a number on it. It is not easy to put a number on quality of life. And we've had a certain quality of life, and I think too, we're Elijah back there, Eddie's kid, is a teenager, and the younger people who are gonna live in Condo City, and it'll be a different Toronto, because they're not gonna have that same vibe. So I'm hoping we can keep it sticking around. The question is, how do we do that in a way that isn't trying to say slam the brakes on capitalism, because you can't, but how can we just say, hey, quality of life matters? How can we suggest ways that quality of life should be part of certain plans? And I know we do it, it's not one answer. But it is hard to see that human scale built form get paid for condos. We've seen what happened in Manhattan. There's almost no life in Manhattan. Anyhow, anyone else have a comment while we're here? Do we have a mic? Christina, do you still have that? You got someone in here? Go ahead.
Just a quick comment about recognition of the people in the room.
Yeah.
watching the credits, there wasn't time to read them. And the band got playing, but there were,
You know what? I was, I guess, self-conscious about the length of this film, so I tried to speed it up.
It didn't need
That
to
will
be
do.
any longer though, to have.
I'd have credits longer. In
Cut
streaming
the
and,
credits, just weren't on the screen and then
sure.
they were and then they were gone.
Okay, so I would say the solution will be when it's streaming and you've got the stop and start capability, you'll have to just go and read it at your pace.
I can only read my name.
Can you keep the tab up there? Tal, I've been waiting for you to see this film for so many years,
Okay, thank you.
wanting you to see it.
Thank you. Thank you for every neighborhood. Yeah. Thank you for the movies, the team. Okay. So many years at last make a public. You know. Thank you. And also, I think now is this movie is a history book, big book. Yeah. I hope that the book, the history, the book continue writing by us, no? And now I think the history return is just now I just know that so many years ago, 1920, yeah, is people say on the streets, yeah, now again, but different condition. Now is tax too high,
Right.
so the people who pay the little rent only rent in from the street.
Right.
The rent is cheap, you know. So I hope this movie give the mirror, give the city government, let them looking, you know, let them free looking, give some tickets to them, you know. It's give some good policy, a regulation to the society, you know. Otherwise, it's died, Kensington died. You're looking now, your movie is not shown now because this is 5 or 7 years ago, yeah? 8 years ago. Now it's more black people, you know, more dark, you know. My neighbor is more black people.
Right.
They are good friends with us, but the market is key.
Right. The one thing I'm seeing actually in the market to speak to development that we didn't include that I've been seeing recently, out of all of these rent increases, which I think is amazing, is there's more people setting up tables on the street. And the other thing that's really cool is people are renting one store and subdividing it into 20 little spots. So the weird thing is, if you look at the beginning of the Jewish market, which was people setting up tables in their front yard or on the street or carts, the folks that are dispossessed, or at least are completely out of the question when it comes to renting real spaces, are finding innovative ways to make contact with people walking down the sidewalk, which is ultimately the root of Kensington, is bring yourself out onto the street, bring people into your home in a weird way. And so I'm actually encouraged, I'm not saying, I don't want to see prices crazy high, but people find a way, and more, there's this subdivision, or I don't need to pay rent, I'm just going to set up here. And that kind of human vibe is probably really peaking right now in some ways, even though gentrification is happening. So that to me gives me a good feeling that people will find it, but they got to have a space. They have to have a canvas to work in, and Kensington's still inside those 4 main streets is still giving them that place. So that's encouraging. We're going to wrap up pretty soon, but anyone else want to say anything else?
Two words.
Yeah.
Now, if the history continue, and now next wave, people, I'm sure, is more Indian immigration coming, you know? Maybe like other,
Right.
other part,
Yeah.
maybe the people on the street.
Yes, could be. Again, this is just my attitude. It's either about being more human or more money, more material. So I don't really care where people come from or who they are. I mean, Kensington, the greatest answer why Kensington is the second you walk inside those blocks, you're in. Okay, so basically we have a few treats set up for you in the front lobby. And after that, we're getting kicked out of here at about 5:45. And so There's a place 2 blocks north at the corner of St. George and Bloor called L'Espresso Bar Mercurio, and we can hang out there for a little bit. So if anyone wants to have a drink or chat, please, in the lobby, we've got stuff set up for you. But they will start yelling at us to get out in about half an hour, 40 minutes, and then we'll go there. So thanks again.